Hey, it's Brendan, and wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about one of the questions that's on sellers' minds all the time, and it has to do with showing feedback. And I can tell you that, I think everyone would like to get more feedback on showings that they're having on their properties or listings. I know I would. We're getting about 40 to 45% of the listings or of the showings that we get, we're getting some sort of feedback from the showing agent. Now, I've been told from other clients who've been listed before with different companies and different agents that they got no feedback, like literally never heard anything. So I know that what we're doing is working, but it still is much less than I think a lot of people like. And I'd like to give you some insight into why that happens. There's some logistical reasons, and then there's some real life reasons that I can give you some insight on that will make a little bit more sense. And the first is understand that agents are typically showing buyers, on average, they're probably showing them between 8 and 10 properties before they end up making a purchase. Now, in terms of that type of volume, if they're not 100% sure what they want, they could be over that. And of course, if they really know and they've dialed in, they only want to look at a few houses, then they're only showing a couple. So the reality is every agent, every seller wants feedback. Every seller and every agent is asking for feedback. And the reality is a lot of times if that buyer's agent is working with multiple people, they just physically don't have the time or choose to not return the calls that we make, the texts that we send, and the email requests that we make for showing feedback. That's just the reality of where the majority of it comes from. As hard as we try, we don't get the feedback back. Number two is that when you are have a property on the market, understand that the feedback that you get from the agent, even though we want to hear what they're saying, then is typically going to be in favor or as a, it's kind of posturing a lot of times from the buyer's side. You are trying to sell it, they're looking at buying it, and if an agent's going to give feedback, a lot of times they're going to give feedback that's going to hopefully put their buyer in a position down the road to kind of set themselves up for negotiations. Which is why when you see things like, didn't compare as well to other properties or, they have some other choices and things like that, don't be alarmed at that because a lot of times that's just what the buyer's agent should be saying. They're representing the buyer. And they won't give you a lot of insight into that because if they did, then me being a negotiator and that closes a couple hundred properties a year, I'm going to probably go back, find out what they said and be able to use that against them in the negotiation. So that's one reason, is they don't want to give a lot of insight into what their buyer really thought. And the third is really has to do with a fiduciary duty that we all hold to our clients. So as a listing agent, when I'm working with my seller, I have a fiduciary duty to put them in a position to get as much money for that property as possible. Tell them exactly where the market is, give opinions on where we need to be valued, and then give them some guidance in the negotiation. The buyer's agent also has a fiduciary duty to their buyer that includes setting themselves up to try to get the best price on the property. So understand that if they're giving you feedback that is going to help you make decisions to maybe get your property under contract with another buyer, or could help you in negotiating against their client if they come back, which I absolutely would do. If we get an offer and the first thing that I do is I go back and I search and find out, well, what agent showed it? When did they show it? What was the feedback? And now look and see if they're the ones that are putting in the offer. Give you a great example. They think that the carpet needs to be replaced and they're putting an offer $10,000 less than the asking price. I'm going to go back to the buyer's agent and say, listen, it's not going to take $10,000 to replace your carpet, and you said you loved the home 3 weeks ago when you were there. It just needed new carpet. Now we've got a really good case to go back at them with a different counter than what their offer price, and it's very, very defendable. So that's another one of the reasons where a lot of times experienced agents won't give feedback because that fiduciary duty that they owe their buyer really is to them. Their job isn't to help the seller get ideas on what's going to help them to sell. Hopefully that gives you some insight into kind of what's going on, and it's not for a lack of trying. I'd love to hear what everybody says, but the reality is we're not going to all the time. And so hopefully they'll help you kind of understand why. And in place of that, in place of everybody's opinion that showed it, What I'm looking for real feedback is, how's the market responding? You know, are we getting the showings that we need? Are we getting the online activity that I'm seeing for other similar properties that are getting contracts on them? Or are we off the mark? Because I sell the amount of properties that I do, and our office is as active as we are, we have a lot of data to be able to compare how are we doing on one property versus the other ones that we know the process has already worked on. Thank you so much, and hope that helped.